So it is currently 2 p.m. on Wednesday, the 30th of June. We are just over halfway through this Wednesday, the first of our 2 teaching and learning days, which means that we are just over halfway through the entire festival, which is fairly...
Can we have another week? Can we do another week?
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back next week. So welcome. This session will be led by Ian Gilbert, and the title of this event will be Independent Thinking, Creativity, Self-Esteem, and Your New Secret Weapon, Thunks. So those are the main ideas that Ian is going to be discussing with us today. As a brief introduction, because we want to get straight into this and we want to hear from you, Ian, not from me. Ian is the founder of Independent Thinking, an organization that serves the most kind of innovative and creative minds in education. Ian has changed the way we view schools and schooling, and how and why teaching and learning can't be treated really as the same thing. Now, joining us from Rotterdam today, Ian.
That's right. Yes, that's me.
Yes, joining us from Rotterdam today. Ian splits his time between Rotterdam and Wales. We are going to be exploring creativity and thought, how to enhance our approach to self-esteem, to improve learning, and of course, Ian's not so secret weapon, which is Thunks. Now, Ian, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, so please.
Okay, all right, let me do the share screen thing, the traditional routine in such matters.
Yeah.
There we go. You can all see that, all good?
Yes, all good.
Right, okay, let me see some faces as well. Good afternoon. Yeah, it's, where are we? Just after 3 o'clock over here in Rotterdam. The reason why I'm here, and the reason why I've been in other parts of the world, is my wife she's a school principal here, Rotterdam International Secondary School. Before that, we were in Hong Kong. She was a vice principal over there. So I spent 4 years in and around Hong Kong and Asia, sort of doing a little bit of work in Singapore and China as well, which gave me some real insights into, amongst other things, the world of tutoring over there. I don't know how much they're paying you here, but if you go to China, you learn a lot more. The tutors over there, I don't know whether you picked this up, but they're superstars. The ones working within the state sector, they are young people who have done well, who are now showing other local Chinese and Hong Kongers how to do well in their exams in order to get into university. The better you do in your exams, the more likely you'll go to a good university, and that's paid for by the state. So it is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise over there, and these tutors are like rock stars, they're film stars. Their pictures are plastered over the sides of buses and on the metro. So whatever they're paying you over here, you know, there's a market for you in Hong Kong. Before that, I was in Chile. My wife's originally from Chile, and there again we have another model of tutors and tutoring. And before that, Dubai, which again has this model of tutors and tutoring, which is why when I first had the conversation with Julia, when we first met, she talked about doing a book and about the organization that she was working for, or she'd set up. I asked the question, are you the Antichrist?
Yes, you did.
Because
no, you did.
Because in so many parts of the world, tutoring is this thing that causes division, that separates the rich from the poor, that perpetuates a poor state education system that has its evils. And then the countries say, "Oh yeah, look at our PISA results," but actually most of the kids who are in the PISA test were tutored. But what makes it different, and why I realised you are not the demons of the Antichrist, is because,
which was a relief.
Yeah, is because I didn't know I was going to be heckled. I like this. It's like being out in the real world. Is because of the good work that you were doing, and I've done a podcast for you as well. And I picked this up, and I've heard a few of the podcasts as well. You're doing it because your heart is very much there to help young people who maybe aren't accessing the education system in the best possible way, to be able to do that, to bring out the best in them, to support them with their well-being, their sense of success, their sense of achievement, and complement what's going on in the classroom. And I love that. And the fact that in England, at least, the government's throwing a bit of money into this system as well. Clearly see, and I know based on the Education Endowment Fund as well, the foundation, that it's seemed to be done the right thing for the right reasons, which is why I'm really pleased to be here today and to share with you some of those those perspectives that I picked up in this unique position, this privileged position, I suppose, of living and working in various parts of the world. And sort of bringing it back to my passion, although I run a company called Independent Thinking, my passion ultimately is about getting kids' brains to hurt and getting them to think for themselves and think deeply and think widely and think creatively and think laterally and think for themselves. And I can send you out as agents of me, as well as agents of Julia and her team, to just develop in children. Yeah, they can pass their exams, they'll do it well at school with your support and help, but there's more to it than that. And just because they're doing well at school doesn't mean diddly squat in so many ways, whereas we've got the opportunity to do more and give them an extra layer that will help them really thrive in the world that's out there. And if you want any reassurance about that, think about the children you've been working with and your own children and your own experience in the last couple of years, 18 months with this pandemic. Think about those who have been used to chaos and the unknown and unpredictability and not quite knowing what to do. I mean, my favorite education quotes from Piaget. He said, intelligence is what you use when you don't know what to do. That intelligence, not the can I remember, can I recall, can I sit a test? Did I go to the right school? Am I going to the right university? This idea of knowing what to do when you don't know what to do is right at the heart of intelligence. And if we've got a school model, especially again, even more reinforced in England, and bearing in mind that Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea and the likes are trying to move away from that model, we've got a model of you're clever if you know what to do, and if you got the answers right, the answers are in the back of the book or they're in the teacher's head. If you can get them, you'll go far. And it's not true. We're doing children a disservice by letting them believe that the world is predictable and reliable and understandable entirely and knowable. And if there's one aspect of science that I think every educator, every young person should know about, is complexity. That everything is linked to everything else. That we can't solve everything. That there are what's called wicked problems, and a wicked problem is something where we don't know. The answer might be this, might be that, might be both this and that, might be neither this or that. Brexit is a wicked problem. How to deal with the pandemic is a wicked problem. Climate change is a very wicked problem. We don't really know how everything will interact with everything. Colombia, here's a quick example. Colombia, they had decades and decades of fighting in the war there, and a peace deal was brokered. So now there's less fighting. Yeah, good news. And it is. The country needs peace, especially after so many decades of such violence. But what happens is that, they turn your spears to plowshares idea, or turn your swords to plowshares idea. So the people who were fighting have now gone back to agriculture, which means they've gone back to the forest, which means they've started cutting down the forest to be able to do the agriculture, which means now the Amazon rainforest or the rainforest in Colombia is shrinking. So we've solved one problem and now we're making another one, an even bigger one, even worse. That's complexity. And for me, if we work at this level of getting children to think deeply and in a complex way, and embrace it and love it and enjoy the process, then I think we're doing what is right by an education system, as opposed to just knowing stuff to pass the exam or the 11 plus or whatever you might be helping them work towards. There's another layer underneath the teaching of stuff and the facts and the curriculum that I know you can help with, and I know that you will embrace. And let's call that, for the sake of anything else, let's call that independent thinking. Right, that's enough of a preamble. Let me get your brains going. I always start the sessions that I do online or in the real world. I can just about remember what that was like, being heckled in the real world, with creative thinking. There's a number of reasons why, but let me test your creative thinking. Let's see if I can find it. I'll open up the chat facility here. So hover above the chat, because this is going to be quick fire, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions and I want your answers in here. There are no rights or wrongs. That's important. There are no rights or wrongs. It's just your thinking. They're just your thoughts. I don't have an idea. I love an app called a website, Random Word Generator. You can do a lot of good creative thinking exercises with this random word generator, because it shows that there's no angle to it. You're not trying to trick anybody, not trying to catch anybody out. So here's some exercises you can do using the random word generator. So if this is the answer, what was the question? So just in the chat, no rights or wrongs, quick as you can. If this was the answer, what was it? Broccoli. Nobody has broccoli for breakfast. That's a lie. That's a lie. You're just trying to look impressive. Pop-Tarts is the answer to that one. What's a green vegetable? What's your favorite soup? What wasn't for breakfast? There we go. That's better. I know we get to the truth. What do you call green cauliflower? If that's what you think of green cauliflower, yeah, okay. Which vegetable kids hate most? Yeah. What floats when you boil it? We've gone science. Wonder why that is. Does it? Okay. They're like eggs. Do they spin? I can't remember. Try another one. Which is the odd one out and why? I'm going to give you 3 words each one is the odd one out and why, but choose the first one. Help, bounce, speaker. If you think it's 2, bounce, put bounce. And if you've got a chance to type quickly, why? So which one's the odd one out and why? No rights or wrong. Speaker's the odd one out, says Sholto. Ludo saying 3. Speaker is the odd one out. We've got 2 for speaker. Which one's the odd one out and why? Bounce. Beck says bounce is the odd one out. Because you might say, help is the odd one out because it's only got 1 vowel. And that works. Or you might say help is the odd one out because it's not in alphabetical order. Speak is the odd one out because it's a noun. Yeah? So help has only got 1 vowel. There you go. It's a thing. Try another one. Think, while I'm doing these with you, just think about what's going through your head. Think about your thinking. Think about whether these answers are easy, whether you're struggling, whether you're trying to think of the right answer, whether you're trying to impress me, breakfast, and everybody else. Are you having trouble with it? Are you thinking, what's the point? What's next in the sequence and why? Drain welcome, what is number 3 and why? Jolion's pointing out bounce is a noun as well. Very good. I like it when the group self-corrects. And help. There goes the noun theory. Phil, drain, welcome, Phil. I like that. Plumber. We've got a problem with the drain. Welcome to whoever comes to the door. It's the plumber. Spider. Oh, okay. It's slice of life. Goodbye. That was a quick visit. Path. Things outside your house. Oh, yeah. Okay. I like that. The welcome out the drain. Plug. Rachel's sharing a previous unwanted experience. Drain, welcome, hospital. Very good. Let's try another one. I'm working you quickly. Think again. Just bear in mind what's going through your head. Put in the right order and explain why. So is it 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1? What do you reckon? 3, 1, 2. We've got a 3, 2, 1 from Julia and Miguel. See, I could say, I mean, we've got the exercise there, put in the right order and explain why. Or I could just say the answer, the order is 2, 3, 1. Tell me why you think that. So you've given me your reason and you've thought it through. You think, okay, that's it. I've come to the end of my thinking now. And suddenly you've spun it. And now they've got to, using exactly the same tools, exactly the same 3 words, you've now got to spin it and come up with something else. An answer is a dead end. That's why I like questions without answers or with lots of answers. As soon as you give a closed question and then don't go any further with it, you've stopped the thinking. It's become a cul-de-sac. And so much of the teaching we do, especially for recall, or for the questioning we do, especially for recall, are these closed questions. And then you get the situation where the child will just sort of go for the first right answer just to stop thinking because thinking's hard. And I see that with boys especially, saying, well, is that your first answer or your best answer? That's where I think this idea of I want 3 answers, or you give me an answer, now give you another answer, now give you another answer. Or you've got 2 minutes, I want 5 answers to this, that way of working. And especially if you're working, and I know some of you are working this way based on the conversations I had with Julia in maybe with small groups as well as one-to-one. You can get them to work sort of collaboratively and then feedback answers as well. But you're constantly moving away from this idea of the one right answer. We can make it even simpler. What color is Tuesday? In the Julia wants to know, did I get it? Yes, Julia, you 10 out of 10. Very good. You got it right and wrong. In fact, everybody got it right. What color is Tuesday? Yellow is quite a common. I asked a lady once, why is Tuesday yellow? And she went, oh, because it's not Monday. I was in Bolton once years ago, and I said, what color is Tuesday? And this man went, grey. Okay. Thursday, grey. Friday, light grey. Life in Bolton. I was joking. I know. Tuesday's red. Tuesday's definitely red. Red is in capitals, therefore that is true. Flanders and Swanee. Okay. Try another one. See, in the part, all those previous ones, we use language, and that's great. That's fine. Language is important. Notice it was verbal, not written. You could make a written one if you wanted to. So actually, we did it right. You could do it verbal or writing or both. We've got what I call the tyranny of syntax in the education system, that learning has to be sort of written in sentences and they have to be neat and correct. Our brains are capable of so much more learning than that which can be written in sentences, especially the younger children. The visual parts of our brain develop before the language parts of our brain. So to what extent can you have exactly the same benefits in terms of the creativity and the mental limbering up, which is what we're doing, and the thinking about different things and the flipping the brain, but not bother with words at all. So this would be one, again, I do this one in the real world. If I was to get you to sort of copy down the circles, I'd say, okay, turn the first circle into something you find on a farm. And then people would perhaps draw 2 circles and a little circle and say it's a pig, or put ears on it or something. Or the second circle, I could say, okay, turn the second circle into something you'd like for your birthday. And some of you just put a diamond on top, and that's okay. And then I might say, okay, cake, I like that. And then I would say, turn the third circle into chicken egg viewed from above. That would be a circle. A third circle, turn it into something something that's important to you. And you'd perhaps put a diamond on the top. That's okay. Miguel's life is important. My iPad. This is where some people put football again. There we go, Jeremy. Jeremy's obviously not Dutch or Welsh. Circle of life, yeah. Some people put, turn it into a child, or family, or wife, or something like that. Notice what I did there as well with those 3 innocuous questions. So to begin with, it was, something you'd find in a farm. So I'm making connections in your brain. We all like farms. It's okay. Animals, pigs, chickens. We're in a happy place now. And then something you like for your birthday. So again, I'm making these connections between what's going on, your lesson, how you feel, and birthdays. We all, on the whole, we like birthdays, especially if you start drawing cake and diamond rings. And then I'm taking even further. I'm bringing you. I'm going deep, even further into you. I'm bringing you more of you, what's inside you, out into this lesson. Something that's important to you. So I've led you in a totally safe and innocuous way into you thinking about things that are important, which means I'm getting you ready for this learning process by bringing you to the room, to the virtual room, and starting to, and making the connection between what's important to you and this lesson. All just by having a bit of fun with circles. And then this one, last one. Do type this one into the chat. Let's go for 5 things. What could that be? No rights or wrongs. Julie says horse. Yoga pose. I did an interview as part of we did a children's book festival over the weekend. I'll send you the link because there's loads of stuff there that's relevant for you. And we interviewed a lady who does, Michi Tit, she does yoga, working with young children in schools and nurseries. And I referred to her saying, I thanked her for disabusing me of the fact that I thought yoga was just stretching, animal-shaped stretching. But apparently there's more to it than that. I'll send you that link because there's loads of really interesting free stuff on that of the videos that we recorded. A square blowing a bubble, a meatball rolling onto the floor. That's Julie's having a lunch while we're doing this, I think. Sun behind the building, a house sun, projector, old-fashioned camera. Lovely, 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 lovely. Well done. Okay, and rest your fingers, rest your weary fingers now. Why all of that? Ultimately, it's the mental limbering up, and research from, I don't know, Oxford University, I'm sure it was years ago, talked about how mental limbering up makes for more effective learning in a learning situation. So in the same way that if you're going to go and play football or any sort of sport, you do a bit of limbering up first, it's the same for the brain. So we're just trying to get you ready for the learning. So when we come to hit the thing that we're really supposed to be teaching them, tutoring them, working with them on, we sort of hit the ground running. So we've warmed up their brain, and there are no rights or wrongs. There's no sense of threat or failure. They haven't failed. If you do a review question where you try and find out from them what they've learned last lesson based on Baruch Rosenshine's principles of instruction and all that, and they can't remember anything, or they weren't, if they weren't there, well, that's a busted flush. If they can't remember anything, they've already started to fail before the lesson's even started. I'm trying to set things up in such a way that they feel good, they feel positive, they can answer, their answers are validated, they're in the room with you just by a minute. And you don't do all of them, you just do 1 or 2. They'll find their favorites as well. And you might, once you've introduced the concept to them, you could get them to bring their own to it. Kids like doing these sorts of things as well. Get them to choose their own 3 words, get them to test you on it, and then bounce it back to them. And we're only talking about a couple of minutes at the beginning of a session, but it's an investment in time that means when they come to play, when they come to do the learning properly, you're flying with all the positive emotions going. And ultimately what you do, I'm about to wave this book at you, because this was also in the interviews that I did. I'm not on commission. I interviewed a chap called Dr. Alan Beggs, who'd written this book, How to Be a Front Runner Mental Fitness for the 11+ pupils. Actually, it's nothing to do with 11+. It's about getting people in the right state of mind in order to learn well. And I realized, there we go, impact is another one. And then I realized that There's a book, some of you might have, of a certain age, might remember from years ago, called The Inner Game of Tennis, a guy called Timothy Galway. And he was one of the first, and Alan Beggs had worked with this guy, he was one of the first people who helped sports people understand that you've got to get the state right, the mindset right, in order to bring the best out of you, whatever technical skill you've got. Alan Beggs worked with the Royal Yachting Association, helped with the 2020 Olympic haul that the yachtsmen and women won for the country. To what extent are you getting young people in the right state for learning? Optimistic, positive, excited, motivated? Those sorts of exercises work. Trailing what you're going to be coming soon. In this lesson, we'll do this, and I'm going to share with you a technique that I guarantee is going to get you an extra 5 points in your exam. Remind me, won't you? Because I might forget. But yeah, I guarantee it. Second half of the lesson, we'll do that. So you're constantly getting the excitement, the curiosity. You're working at that emotional brain. And if you know your neuroscience, I do recommend you do. The little book, A Big Stuff About the Brain by Dr. Andrew Curran, one of Independent Thinking Associates, is probably a good starting point. If you get that brain in the right sort of state, get the dopamine going. Dopamine is the neurochemical that is released by having a reward. You know, it's the chocolate, it's the coffee, it's the crafty fag outside at the back of the house. It's all the anticipation of a reward, doing something you're about to do something that you know you like, that you enjoy, that feeling of pleasure, of imminent pleasure. That's dopamine. And dopamine is a key memory chemical. It's a memory. It's like tutor's little helper. When dopamine is released, we have a thing called I think it's called the look back effect. The 10 minutes or so prior to the dopamine get remembered better because of the dopamine. It sort of anchors it in. So we know that emotions and memory go together. And again, there's so much stuff going on in schools at the moment, which is turning teaching into a technical act. You need to go through these things in order technically for them to get it. But we also know ultimately it's an emotional thing. Plato said the route to all learning is through the emotions. Get them emotionally engaged. And we know it makes the memory much better. But using I don't know, positive emotions, if you like. There isn't such thing as a positive or negative emotion, but the idea of positive emotions that will move us towards the learning, not away from. Because you will be working with, based on what I said earlier, with children who have emotions that move them away from the learning, maybe down to prior experience, maybe down to experiences they've had in the classroom, maybe because they felt stupid, maybe they've been made to look stupid, maybe they've constantly failed compared to other people, maybe there's that pressure of the 11 plus or whatever it might be that's just so overwhelming for them. So by creating this positive emotional state that moves them towards learning, possibility, capability, you're setting everything up nicely for the lesson. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a good book. There are others out there as well. Think about the inner game of tutoring. There's a book that needs to be written that would work with that, and the other ones that are out there as well. So how do you create effective neurochemistry in order to help your tutees learn as well as they possibly can? How do you manage and maintain it over the course of an hour or 90 minutes or whatever you've got? Breaks can help there, but also, like I say, what's called the throwing forward, which is a term from the media, coming up after the news, coming up after the break, and you dangle these little things that keep them going. And beginnings and ends are important as well. You know that from your memory research, I'm sure. We remember the beginnings and we remember the ends. The more little breaks you've got, the more beginnings and ends, the more memorable the entire session is. Beyond that, so we've got them in the right state, and yeah, you're all professional tutors. You know what you're doing when it comes to getting young people to get the stuff to stick in their brains, and they'll do better. But going back to what I said right at the beginning, what are we doing to do more than just that? What are we doing to get them thinking? This guy, Niels Bohr, is a Nobel laureate, a Nobel Prize winning scientist from Denmark, I think. Yeah, I think. And he famously said this: no, you're not. Let me just move the chat box out of the way a bit. No, you're not thinking.
Do you mind if I interject for a moment?
Yes, go on.
You say that we do know how to get it into their memory. What I find with a couple of students is they can do stuff while I'm with them, but as soon as they're not with me, they've forgotten. I've got one student in particular who looks at me as though I've never taught her things that she's had spaced repetition. And like, there's a couple of students I'm really stuck with that short-term memory, absolutely brilliant, can achieve anything. long-term memory, empty. I don't know what to do with a couple.
How often do you see them?
Once a week, quite often.
What do they do in between you seeing them?
Go to school.
In terms of the information you've shared with them?
I mean, they get a homework, but seriously, like one of them, even decimals and fractions, how to convert between the two. This should be bread and butter for her. She's year 6, but she genuinely doesn't remember. I was almost wondering whether there was an illness associated.
I mean, we're moving a little bit away from the purpose of this, but I'm happy to sort of, I mean, feel free to sort of drop me an email. Julia can give, or Luda can give you the email, and we can discuss it a little bit further, because there can be issues around trauma, for example, and remembering things, but also there might be other techniques that I can help you with that will help us sort of stick in your head. There's also the technology as well in terms of spaced learning, which is important, and there are a few apps and things that you can that just suggest and reinforce. She said she creates these cards online, and then at set times these cards then are posted back to her, and she has to fill in the gap.
I've heard of Anki and stuff, but
but let's connect with me outside of this, because we're a little bit outside of the remit for this, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. So just going back to this one, you're not thinking, you're just being logical. To what extent are you helping children learn to do more thinking than just to be logical? There's a place for logical thinking, but clearly one of the top scientists, this guy worked with Einstein in the last century, knows that there's more to thinking than just logically processing things in the right order and coming up with a conclusion. Far more to it than that. But the message we're getting in the school system is it's not. It's a linear process. It's A plus B equals C. Always does, always will. Let me give you an example. So I'm a runner. You can tell by my racing snake figure, as Terry Wogan used to say. I put my running socks on in the morning. I put on the left sock, it's got an L on it. What's going to have on the right sock? It's another L, because it stands for large. And that gets me every time. Now, it's perfectly logical to think L stands for left and R stands for right. It's logical, but it's incorrect with certain pairs of socks. So this idea that that's an answer, but there might be another answer, is important when it comes to developing the children's ability to navigate, to think for themselves, to deal with complexity. Another example, this was, I remember years ago, I was doing some work with year 11 students in a school in Nottinghamshire. I'm in the break, I sort of nipped out, and I remember pushing this double door, pushed the left-hand door, it opened, I went through. And I've been talking about thinking, and it just made me reflect as I went through this door. What have I learned about the door? I've learned to push the left-hand side and it opens. And I very efficiently and effectively and successfully got through the door. 10 out of 10. What did I not learn about the door? I could have pulled it. I'll never know. Maybe the right-hand door was open. Maybe it was a push. Maybe it was a pull. So by efficiently and effectively getting the answer right, I missed out all the other opportunities to learn. And there's a big drive in England, especially around efficiency in education. We need to work as efficiently as possible, which is why learning's become this, or teaching has become this sort of technical thing where we apply certain technical principles that we don't have to think about, and learning shall happen. But what have we lost in efficiently getting from A to B? What have we lost in terms of the undiscovered learning, the opportunities for discovering other things that may come in useful later, for serendipity, for dealing with failure, for dealing with frustration, for dealing with for encouraging curiosity? I think we're losing an awful lot by this direct transmission technical approach to efficiently getting our exam results in as many people, the best exam results we possibly can. There's a place for that, but there are a place for other things as well. And I would suggest more important than the exam results, much more. As an example of how you can still go through your Rosenstein's principles of instruction and review the lessons and help with the memory, hopefully, and do what you're supposed to do, but do it in a way that's developing their independent thinking as well. So you can play that guess what's in the teacher's head or the tutor's head. And we do that a lot. Okay, children, okay, James, what do you remember from? What do you remember of? So you do these closed questions. And if James, whatever, remembers, then he might feel good. If he forgets, if he doesn't remember, he feels bad before you even started. But that's the sort of the model we default to. You could do, okay, James, you've got 1 minute. I want 3 things from that. I want 3 things from last lesson. You've got a minute, or you've got a minute. How many things can you remember from last lesson? And just type them out or spurt them out as quickly as you possibly can. If you are working in the small groups, depending on how small the groups. You could do the snowball thing if you've got, I don't know, a group of 4 or 5, on their own and then in pairs and then together as a group, or the boys say that or the girls say that. You're just playing around with it. So there might be a 2-minute activity where they're doing all the reviewing for you. You're just observing, and then they're feeding back the 3 most important things from the previous session that you've done with them. Notice with that one as well that they're allowed then to get it wrong because they're amongst peers. But oh no, that wasn't right. Yeah, oh yeah, I remember now, we did that. So they're not being made to feel bad or being anxious about saying something that might be perceived as wrong, because they're just doing it in a safe space. And if there's stuff that you really want them to have remembered, have your little bonus envelope. So as they're thinking about, you've got a minute, as many things as possible from last lesson. I've got the special one. If you get this, you get to finish a minute early, or you get a minute extra, depending on how much they're enjoying themselves. Turn it on its head, like we did with broccoli. Okay, so the answer's 7. What was the question? The answer's after the decimal point. What's the question? So, and they might come up with right answers you hadn't even thought of, and that's okay. We will tend to sort of focus on, we've taught them stuff, and now we need them to tell us, regurgitate the things we've taught them. But if I've taught you why World War I started in 1914, a more reflective, creative thinking, independent thinking sort of question might be, can you tell me why the World War I didn't start in 1915? They've still got to recall and use the knowledge that they learned, but you're getting them to apply it and come at things in a different way and be creative with it. They're still going to get, pass their exams, but you're going beyond the, tell me the things you remember me saying to you before. Why did Henry VIII not stop at 3 wives? Why is gold not the most I don't know, prolific element in the universe? Actually, no, that's persuade a partner, persuade a tutor. That would work as well. But tell me why. Tell me, you got a minute. Tell me why gold is the most common element in the universe. It's wrong, but tell me, persuade me as if you believe it. Again, you've got to really know your stuff and unpick it and have fun with it and play around with it to work in that sort of way. Tell me why 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. You've got a minute, off you go. And the more they come to look forward to these sorts of fun little activities, again, towards the beginning and the end of a lesson, they work as a good review at the end of a lesson as well. They'll start to choose their favorites. They'll increasingly get into the swing of it. They will say things and come up with things and thinking that you didn't think was possible, I guarantee it. And then if you are setting little quizzes and test things for them, get them at the end of one session to set themselves a test, or maybe in the interim in the week, that we're going to start next session with a test, but you're going to set it 5 questions. Okay, send it to me in advance or have it ready, and then we'll take it from there. Or give them a test, get them to prepare the test one week and give it to them the following week. So you're doing that sort of looping back thing in the spaced learning. All the while with a smile on your face, with a smile on their face, enjoying the process, getting the dopamine going, getting the state right, getting the neurochemicals going in the right sort of way. How are we doing for time? Over halfway through. Everybody okay? I'll assume yes. Why am I spending time with you, encouraging you to go beyond just what you have to do? Thank you for the thumbs up. You're just there to help them, do well at school, because doing well at school ain't enough. This one, really, it's not enough. I've talked for years about what I call the great educational lie. Do well at school, you'll get a good job. It's the lie I was told when I went to school in the 70s, 80s. Do well at school, you'll get a good job. It ain't true, but it's a thing we do to keep the system going. Now other people are saying it as well. The sound's a little bit faint on this, so lean in. And have a listen to the guy speaking, Jack Ma, MA. He's one of the wealthiest guys around. He set up Alibaba in China, which is like this big marketplace. You might have seen, if you've been watching the football from behind the sofa or through Welsh tears or French tears, Alipay around the side. That's his sort of online banking portal. It's so huge that the Chinese government are cracking down on him because he's got a bit too much power, I think is what they say. He was speaking at Davos 2018. Davos is the meeting of the great and the good. Trump didn't go. It's the World Economic Forum gathering every year. This year was Singapore because of COVID, of the top business people in the world, the multi-billionaires, the media people, the politicians, the academics, to sort of take a pulse of the world and see where it's going. This is him speaking in 2018, and he's a former teacher, by the way. So I've got this on full blast. Turn your thing up full blast. or your headphones or whatever, lean in and just see what you think.
Join the company, do better than they thought. And everything the company should do is making sure the good environment to training him to be more positive. And everything we do, this is a teacher. And teacher does not mean I know better than you are. Everything I know better than you are because I learn from others. So a teacher should learn all the time. A teacher should share all the time. A teacher should always expect the other people better than you are. And by the way, education, it's a big challenge now. If we do not change the way we teach, 30 years later we'll be in trouble. Because the way we teach, the thing we teach our kids are the things the past 200 years is knowledge-based. And we cannot teach our kids to compete with machine who is smarter. We have to teach something unique. That is, machine can never catch up with us. In this way, 30 years later, our kids have the chance. I hope I answer your question.
It's a very difficult one to answer, but what are those skills that you think we need to teach? If we're moving away from knowledge, what are the key things?
Value, believing, independent thinking, teamwork, care for others. These are the soft part. The knowledge may not teach you that. Folks, that's why I think we should teach our kids on sports, the music, the painting, art, to making sure humans should be different from, everything we teach should be different from machine. If the machine can do better, you have to think about it.
If the machine can do better, you have to think about it. Let me give you 1 minute. I've rattled on fast and got you doing lots of things and messing with your brain. Our little logo, top left-hand corner there, is about sort of, trying to use independent thinking to sort of turn the world on its head, take people's brains for a walk. I've done that for half an hour. I'm going to stop for a minute. This is going to be a real minute, not a tutor minute. Go on forever, I bet. Just think about that, about anything. If you think by typing, type into the chat. You can think by staring into space. You can think by doodling. I don't mind. You've got 1 minute. Just all the stuff that we've covered so far. Just have a think. I'll shut up for a minute now. Fifteen seconds.
Join the company.
Okay, and you're back in the room. The robots bit. You see that quote from Singapore, and they are using robots with young children in Singapore. To what extent is the tutor's job ultimately robotable? To what extent can you simply be replaced by an expert system working within a doll or a phone? Research on expert systems in America and the military found that when the cadets were taught using an expert system, which is a computer that's been programmed with all the knowledge they need, they actually fared better than when they were taught by admirals with however much experience. What are you bringing to your role as a tutor that will mean that you cannot be replaced by a empathetic robot? They exist. I definitely sort of check that out, because it leads to this question, which this is a book I wrote, it's about 10 years ago, I think. And it includes some information that I'd heard about what are the things what are the big challenges facing the world, and global pandemic was on the list. We've known it's been coming. And I'm saying to teachers in that book, why we need to prepare young people to deal with the world where this is going to happen. The old "I told you so," it's not very sweet, but it wasn't a surprise what's happened. Why do I need a tutor when I've got Google? Let me give an example. I'll talk about Chile. My girls were at school in Chile. They went to this top 5 international school in Santiago based on, thank you, Sholto, based on sort of the data. But it was rubbish. It was just the teacher at the front, the kids sitting in rows like The Simpsons in those little square chairs, tables and chairs. And it was like blah, 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 copy, 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 get a test, get a mark, move on, or quiz, result, grade, move on. And that was it. And it was just rubbish. And when I said to the teachers, look, my girls aren't learning anything, their response was, well, I've taught them, so it's not my fault. Get a tutor. Here's a card. It's my daughter. She's very good. And what I said at the beginning, the whole model of awful teaching is backed up by a tutoring system that is making a lot of money. So you could go to South America and do pretty well as well, financially, if not morally. After about 5 months in that awful school, I just rang the girls at one lunchtime and said, just forget it, just come home. They learned more sitting around the dining room table with their laptops on Khan Academy and BBC Bite Size than they had for the whole of the 5 months they'd been at that awful school. So, why do I need a teacher when I've got Google? If you're crap, I don't. Why do I need a tutor if you're not adding any value? If nothing is benefit, if I couldn't get something better by sitting around with my laptop, then I'll do that because it's a lot cheaper. So to what extent are you adding value? Why do I need to, if you're a good teacher, if you're a good tutor, I need you now more than ever. What do we mean by good? Can do the things we're talking about, can work at an emotional level, can develop their state and their excitement, can make them feel more positive than they were before, can develop creativity and independent thinking and group work and teamwork and self-esteem and all of those sorts of things as well. They're the things that ultimately at the moment the computers can't do yet. You might recognize this guy, Professor Sugata Mitra, The Hole in the Wall, probably one of the most viewed TED Talks. The Slumdog Millionaire film was sort of based on this idea of children from the slums in India teaching themselves if they just have access to a computer. And Sugata Mitra suggests that maybe he uses, I worked with him in Hong Kong. We had him come out and visit for a week. It was a privilege to spend time with him. And he used the word maybe a lot. A lot of really intelligent people don't talk in definites. That's for Twitter. Maybe reading, writing, arithmetic has had its day. And maybe we need to be thinking in terms of the 3 C's instead. And to what extent in your work, in this privileged position of tutors, where you get to work in a one-to-one or one-to-small group way in a way that so many other people don't, this focused, intimate way, are you developing the 3 C's? And just going back to the World Economic, how are we doing for time? We've got 20 minutes, just under. Going back to the World Economic Forum, going back to the things that really count. This is, they always do a survey. This is from 2018, so pre-pandemic. What's trending? What are the things based on our sort of testing the water, finger in the air, speaking to universities and businesses and governments and everybody that's out there? What's on its way up for 2022? Pre-pandemic, but I don't think the pandemic will influence this too much. Maybe a bit more scientific thinking in there. I don't know. Well, no, I think it's all in there. These are the things they're saying on the way up, but not necessarily in the right order. In a minute, I'm going to get you a chance to think about what you think the top 3 are, but let me just share with you what they suggest are declining. These are the skills. We're not saying they're not important, but we're saying they're of decreasing importance going forward. Think about school life. To what extent is the focus of our education system a series of skills that are in decline globally? Yeah. So that's the list, but let's put them in the right order. Let's. I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds. Thank you, Angela. Can you put them in the right order? Just top 3. Let's go for top 3. Just put the numbers down. If you think 4, 5, 8, or 9, 7, 3, just choose. Just choose which ones you think are the top 3 based on the Future of Jobs Survey 2018 by the World Economic Forum. Top 3. Just put the numbers in. We've got 5, 6, 9. No. Okay. What else? Thank you, Amanda. Got 10, 8, 4 from Julia. Julia's going straight for that emotional intelligence. 2, 4, 3. Lots of votes for the 10s. Nice. 10 seconds. What else you got? 9, a 10, and a 1. Judy's going for the 777. Okay, this is they in the right order. Notice, so number 1, analytical thinking. I talked about you're not thinking, just being logical. And innovation. The nov bit in innovation is the same as nouveau. Nov means new. To thinking analytically and then doing something with it. Notice number 2, active learning. It's not passively taking stuff on board and regurgitating it. It's actively, it's dilemma-based learning, it's inquiry-based learning, it's problem-based learning, it's learning on the job, it's learning in an ongoing, active, real-life sort of way. It's not this abstract thing that the classroom has become. There's your creativity, originality, and initiative. Critical thinking. In England, Michael Gove took critical thinking off A level. He got rid of critical thinking A level. Draw your own conclusions. Complex. Number 6, notice the word complex. I said at the beginning about complexity. It's not just hard problems. Hard problems are easy compared to complex problems, because hard problems have got an answer. Complex problems, like I say, have got lots of answers or no answers, and we've still got to function. Notice number 7, social influence. One of the books in this book festival, the interviews I had, was a book called You Can Change the World, and it's just a brilliant book. This lady, the lady who wrote the book about, I think it's The Gift of Dyslexia or The Power of Dyslexia, that lady, Margaret Rook, I think, just spoke to young people from all around the world who had said, this is a social injustice, I want to do something about it. This is something that's affected my life and it can be different, I'm going to do something about it. Just young people putting petitions together, gathering people together in the real world and online, and changing the world. Social influence. Greta Thunberg, you know, a young girl sitting on the steps somewhere in Scandinavia can change the world, and she has changed the world. Emotional intelligence is up there. A lot of you like that one. Number 9, there's the problem solving, ideation, coming up with ideas, again, generating ideas, thinking for yourself. Which for me, if these are the 10 trending trends for 2022, thank you, Sholto, dyslexia is my super, means, and apologies for missing out the question mark here, I don't know where that went, means we need to ask this question. Well, I know, there it is. I was building up the suspense even in myself. What are they learning while you're tutoring them? What else is going on while you are tutoring them? You can just tutor them to sort of sit down, sit still, do what you're told, know the thoughts, learn the pre-known stuff, and you'll go far. Or you can teach them to do all that, but also to think for themselves, to take their initiative, to learn the power that they have, to learn about their brains, to learn how to control their state, to learn how to use the information, to play with it, to manipulate it, to go out and make things differently, do things differently. For me, I've got 10 minutes, 12 minutes. This my as Ludo said, not so secret weapon, hits a lot of those buttons in a really simple way. I'm not making any claim for this to be anything other than simple, and the way for you to understand how simple it is just to have a go with it. Thunks grew out of some of you might have come across Thunks, my work around philosophy for children, a program getting kids to think for themselves, which came out of from an American professor of philosophy called Professor Matthew Lipman. And I just was doing a lot of work in schools, and I wanted a simple way of doing it. And these questions started coming into my head, questions where there are no rights or wrongs, and the answer is either yes, no, or something else. Questions like, is it right to bully a bully? Can you touch the wind? Is a pregnant woman 2 people? Is there more history? Is there more future than past? Is a broken down car parked? Does a dog mind what you touch it with? They're all thunks. So I'm going to give you a thunk, and then we're going to do a breakout. It's exciting. So there's a thunk. I'm going to give you 4 minutes, and I think Ludo or Sholto, somebody's going to set all this up with the breakout. Is that so? I'll assume that's the case. The answer, I want you in your little, however you end up in your little breakout sessions, I want you to say yes because, no because, and then have a fight, and then we'll see who wins when you come back into the room. So there are no rights or wrongs. You're not playing the game. Guess what the answer is? Yes, you think you should. No, you think you shouldn't. But also why you think that is the case. And if you all, if all of you say yes and agree, then one of you play devil's advocate and say, well, what if the answer was no? What would we think then? 4 minutes in your in the breakout rooms. I'll assume somebody will sort that out for you now.
3, 2, 1.
5 minutes to go, everybody, let's focus. Ludo, is everybody back?
Yes.
Right, okay. So do I need to share my screen again? Is that what happened?
Yes, please.
There we go.
The breakout rooms were very good. So they were almost certainly too short, but that's okay.
Oh, leave them wanting more is always good. If we had time, I would sort of get some feedback from you about how you felt that was. Did you have an argument? Did you have a fight? Did you all agree? Was that okay? Was it frustrating that people didn't see your point of view? Did you go there thinking yes, and just all you did was argue your own point? Or did you go there thinking yes and manage to have your mind change your mind, prove you've got one? Did you go there, as they say, did you go there thinking, not sure what you were thinking, and then waited for 4 minutes, listened in order then to draw a conclusion? There are lots of ways of answering these questions. And think about, in the whole metacognition thing, thinking about thinking to a certain extent, think about what it felt like. Was it frustrating? Did it make you angry? Did you like the idea that there wasn't a resolution, that there wasn't a right answer? What I find is it's the more academically able children who suffer most with these sorts of questions, because they're the ones afterwards who sort of lurk and say, well, what is the answer then, sir? So, I don't know, there isn't an answer, it's just whatever you think. And they get really cross with that. And then you think about that because we're teaching these young people certainty and that there are answers at the back of the book. And like I said at the beginning, that ain't true. The world is uncertain, unsure, unpredictable, unknowable. So we're doing them a disservice by sending them out of the education system thinking that anything other than that. So whereas and there's a place for right and wrong and knowing stuff, but then there's this other layer of developing this thinking and this complexity and thinking and being uncertain, being comfortable with being uncertain. Play with the Thunks. Have fun with it. There are Thunks books. There's little Thunks cards you can use as well. On the Independent Thinking website, there's a page with sort of 20 starter Thunks to play with. You can make your own. That book, the complete book of Thunks that Julie's waving about, there's loads in there. And what you find as well is that different ages, you can have the same Thunk. Should you bully a bully, you can have the same Thunk, and a 5-year-olds will have a conversation with it, and 18-year-olds will have a conversation, same Thunk, but they work at a different level. So it's sort of self-selecting in that way. And you also find that it gives you an insight into children thinking that you didn't think they were even capable of. It really changes your perception of what their brains are capable of. Other thinking tools that you can use that go beyond the guess what's in the teacher said. This is one from Harvard Project Zero, Harvard University. Howard Gardner is working in hardship, visible thinking, not visible teaching. That's visible learning or whatever. That's a hatty thing. This is visible thinking, making the thinking that they are doing explicit. So, for example, this, give them an image, give them a video, give them something. What do you see? You got a minute. What do you think? Next minute. Now, what do you wonder? And notice there are 3 separate ways of thinking about things. It's not just tell us what you think about this. You're breaking it down into specific thinking skills. Another one that you could do is, how long have we got? Give them an image, a stimulus, and ask them to come up with the questions. So, if you were putting that out, what sort of questions might they ask? Which one came first? Where would you prefer to live? Which one has the better view? Where is it? Closed question, easy to find. Google reverse image search. You can track that down, and then you can take. And so that's fine. But then you can go a little bit further. Who are happiest? Who are saddest? How do the people on the right get their balls back? Is there a gate? Who's got the key? Questions only. And then learning becomes the process by which they seek answers to their own questions. You could do that towards the beginning of a lesson, then the lesson becomes them seeking answers to their own questions. And the idea of questions, let's go to physics again. Let's go to another Nobel Prize winner. Every Jewish mother in Brooklyn would ask a child, did you learn anything? Not my mother, she asked me, did you ask a good question? At the end of the lesson, at the end of a tutoring session, what questions did your tutee ask? Maybe get them to start. Can you write down, this is the topic we're going to do, and can you write down 5 questions? Or can you come to the session with 5 questions to which we're going to work towards the answer over the course? It's a good review exercise. It's a bit like that quiz thing that I talked about right at the very beginning. To what extent do these questions form part of the dialogue that you have? That they are asking you, that you're asking them. If you're in a group, that they're asking each other. Imagine this is the rubric that's in a classroom, it'd be on the wall, but maybe virtually, maybe put it on a screen behind you, get it printed out as a little card, take it to school. To what extent are these the sorts of questions that your tutee is learning to use wisely? And all that what we're doing ultimately works, what I notice work towards this idea of their self-esteem. And that's the best definition that we've come across of self-esteem, that children feel capable and got to have both lovable, because, you know, people who feel capable but not lovable, and the other way around. You've got to have both. And this idea of my thoughts count, because I'm not playing the game, I guess what the teacher said, my thoughts count, therefore I count, goes a long way towards is capable and lovable. To what extent do the children leave your sessions feeling more capable and more lovable than when they started, especially if they're not getting it elsewhere, either at home or at school? Which, and I'll end with this 4-letter word. Everything that I do ultimately works towards helping young people have more of this than when they start. I wrote a book, Essential Motivation in the Classroom, years ago. And we had sort of 7 keys for having internally motivated, driven, happy learners. And number 7 on the list was hope. Things can get better and I can do something about it. Agency, taking responsibility. Napoleon said a leader is a dealer in hope. Go back to the brain, neuroscience. There's a phrase from years ago, hope fires a neuron. When you're in a state of hopefulness, your brain lights up. To what extent are children who maybe come to you hopeless or with diminishing reserves of hope, leaving your sessions and any time with you with higher levels of hope than when they started? And that's the true story, actually. This is a headline from a Chinese newspaper. So there is hope for us against the robots. Sorry for going over 2 minutes, but I'll blame Julia for chatting too much. There you go. That's me. Please make contact. Please get in touch. If you want the PowerPoint, we could probably get it to you as well. Check out the books, check out me, check out the website, and enjoy the rest of the conference. And thank you for having me.
Ian, thank you so much for inviting us to play. The dopamine is buzzing. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Can we give Ian a big wave, please? Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so kind. Okay, Ludo, over to you.